next speaker is Rania. She's from Université Grenoble. She works in the politics department. And the title of her presentation is about challenging the sustainability of the current humanitarian refugee system in enhancing human capabilities and well-being. So we leave the speech to Rania, and happy to learn a lot of stuff.
Thank you very much. So I am Rania Arar, and I'm in my second year, and I am working on challenging the sustainability of the current refugee system and enhancing the human well-being and capabilities. I will start the presentation with a research motivation. So before the Ph.D, I did a master's degree in international cooperation and urban planning, another master's degree in international development studies, and I have my bachelor degree in architectural engineering. I will link that with a personal story from the past. So I will go back to 1998. My family was living in Jordan at that time. My father was a Palestinian refugee who lives in Jordan with a Jordanian nationality. And suddenly he lost everything. He was betrayed and lost all his position and had to move for a short period of time to Palestine. So he moved to Palestine as he was a Jordanian citizen. He could not move inside Palestine for a long time. He could not stay for a long time in Palestine. So he was illegally stayed for a long time. So he was deprived from his right to move or to work inside the country. He faced very difficult situation. He and all the family, we faced very difficult situation represented in poor accommodation, financial poverty, and other challenges from movement restrictions to joblessness, etc. And so this caused my father deep emotional distresses. He was full of anger, full of depression, full of frustration and violence sometimes. Even though our situation, our financial situation started to improve 2 and 3 years later, because my mother started to work as a school teacher inside the country because she was a Palestinian, still he could not, my father could not recover from this trauma and could not live again a normal life. So finally, 5 to 6 years after that incident, he died with a heart attack. So for a long time, I was wondering what was the thing that my parents really needed, that if met, we could lifted out of poverty and despair, and we could live a normal life again. And I was thinking also about those people nowadays that they are leaving everything behind them inside their own countries and had to forcibly move to a new country, how they could manage to build a new life in a new country. So I arrived to say that there are central capabilities and freedoms that usually people value, and if they lose, they will not be able to continue a normal life. And for the disadvantaged population, especially refugees who have a special case, they need to build their resiliency. They need to have more qualities, some values that they could face any difficult situation they may pass on in this new country. So the research problem. So my individual story has inspired me to study the refugee communities who are trapped in poverty and joblessness, and especially in Jordan that receive nowadays more than 1 million of Syrian refugees who are living, the majority of them live under the poverty line. And for Jordan as a developing country, it struggles by feeding and serving its own citizens. So how they could serve the refugees. And during the COVID crisis, things became worse because refugees are not anymore a priority for the country. Another issue that I need to focus on, that we usually see the refugees and any poor people through the eyes of needs, and we ignore that people have values, and this value can change their ability to reason, appraise, and act and participate. And usually the way we support refugees and poor people by donation and charity, which is okay for the short term, but for the long term, it creates a great dependency on relief system, and this is non-sustainable, can't be sustainable for the long term. So the research objective is to develop a human development strategy based on Amartya Sen capability approach. So I will take into consideration 3 key points. First, that refugee issue is a development issue as much as a humanitarian issue. We need to see refugees through, not only through the eyes of needs, we need to see them through their values. And it's inhuman to see them through only the needs. We need to rethink how to provide charity and containment in order to break that vicious circle of victims and contribute to improve the well-being of refugees and bring about sustainable changes in refugees' communities. So the study will focus on 2 main pillars. The first one, explore and expand refugees' capabilities and turn them into long-term functioning and long-term well-being. The second, design the enabling environment that will influence the application of the capability approach and promote the well-being of refugees. So the capability approach is a deep approach to human development that takes sustainability centrally, and it considers the ultimate aim of any economic activity is the human well-being, and that will lead, of course, to create sustainable communities. This approach recognizes the need of people and doesn't ignore the needs, but he acknowledges also that people have values that should be taken into consideration, and emphasize on the role of people in expand their own capabilities and turn them into long-term functioning. So in this diagram, we see that we have a resource. I will give example that we have a bike in order to explain this approach. We have a bike and this is the resource, and the conversion factor will be your physical ability to ride the bike. Then you have the capability, which is that you value this doing such thing, that you value riding the bike, so you are capable to ride the bike. Then you have the freedom to ride the bike. You have the choice. It's not the only choice that you have multiple choices, but you choose to ride the bike. Then you ride the bike and you achieve your state of well-being. But your state of well-being can be achieved, you can be happy, for example, without having this resource. So this is what is interesting about the capability approach. It deals with individual and doesn't limit human well-being to any material resource. So, and because we are speaking about individual capabilities in the capability approach, the poor as individual usually will not able to ask for their own capabilities. They are fragile to ask for their own capabilities. So what they need is what we call the agency. The agency is a group of vulnerable individuals. Usually they are unable to claim their own capabilities and freedom, so they act together, they participate together in order to achieve a better livelihood. So this way they can expand their own capabilities and freedoms. And collective agencies is a gradual and long-term process of social change. So it takes time, but it's worth it. So why collective agencies? First, because it involves local as a sustainable human resource. Second, as we work for the interest of the collectivity, not for individual, they will gain different skills, include communication skills, advocacy skills, project writing skills, etc. This way, after gaining this skill, they will be able to develop strategic alliances and sustain their financial funds. They will be able to ask for funds in order to fund their agencies. The agency can involve one or more dimensions of sustainability, depends on the interest of that agency and the purpose of its creation. The collective agency can provide people with a sense of fulfillment. They will feel fulfilled and have a sense of duty and responsibility, which will, of course, improve the well-being of people. And this is what I concentrated on my individual story, because people usually care about what they bring to that community. They are social creatures and they would like to act and participate. And without this part, they will not be able to achieve their well-being. With a collective agency, people will be able to, they will have the potential to expand their capabilities and freedoms, and they will have the capacity to aspire for a better future for coming generations. So what is the strategy to create these agencies? First, we need to define the set of capability. How we define it? Through studying the main problem that people have in their community, and then prioritize them according to their impact on the well-being of people. Then we need to identify the gap between that capability and its realization. What is the distance? What prevents people from achieving that capability? And study these obstacles and bring solution that fits with that problem. Then we need to define the values of the agency, and we define it through studying the valuable being and doing the things that people value being and doing in life. And then people who share the same values, they can create this agency together. So for example, if a group of people value health, then their agency will be created based on that. And then will be bring some projects related to health issues because they value being in health, in a good health and well-being. Then we need to look to, at early stages, we need to collaborate with local NGOs. Local NGOs will help create and support the local, the human agencies. And how the NGOs will support is through providing trainings, capacity building techniques, some awareness seminar that provide the necessary skills for those people in order to be able to manage their self-help groups by themselves without creating more dependency on relief system and NGOs. Then we need to design the enabling environment. We agree that a refugee camp should be a heaven or a place where people should recover and be protected and recover from their tragedies. So the functions that this agency will generate will be in that design, in the design of this map. So if, for example, if they value health, maybe their project will be related to agriculture projects. So we design the map according to that. And finally, we need to contribute to changing stereotypes. And this is crucial key to any success. If people believe that they are victims, so they will not be able to succeed in any project. And here I quoted a very interesting quote: "It is not money that leads to a better life, but rather changing people's perceptions and behavior that does so." So to conclude, we need to shift the focus from providing temporary solution and short-term aid systems and discouraging people from living on the diagram. You see the first threshold, which is the human right that I'm not negotiating in this presentation. So they should have the basic human rights, but we should help them flourish and reach the second threshold by building their own capabilities. And finally, to consider refugee a development issue as much as a humanitarian issue. And thank you.
So thank you very much for this presentation. We have a question by Emily. So Emily, you can unmute.
Hello, Rania. Nice to meet you. I've just discovered that we are from the same research lab, but we haven't met yet. And thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. I was wondering first if you have a concrete example of this capability approach in one camp, and also if you also look at similar things in France, because what you mentioned about looking at capability reminded me about an NGO that is called Singa, and that work with refugees in France with the skills they have. So they kind of look at the skills they have back in their previous home and try to find them a job or at least volunteering that matches with their previous job back in their countries. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily. For the first question, actually, I don't have a case study that does this with a refugee camp. Usually, the development issue is not really taken in consideration with the NGOs. They do it, but in like partially, but not, you know, not it's not the aim of the NGO is to provide the development project and building capabilities. But in France, I think usually in Europe, they care about these things more than in developing countries. Because as I mentioned, in developing countries, they already struggle with their issues. So new issues are not in their interest. That's why the capability approach focus on people themselves to build their own capabilities with the help in early stages from NGOs. So people will be able to generate their own agency because no one will be interested in helping poor population. So this is the idea. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much. I guess also because previously refugee camps were more thought as something very temporary, but now NGOs are starting to
they are
realize that people are living there for 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was previously working with an NGO that was working on this issue of humanitarian energy, because initially like NGOs didn't want, for example, to electrify the camp. I mean, not to put like sustainable solutions, because they were thinking that people would leave after a short while. But now it looks like the paradigm is being shifted because they are realizing that people are living there for more than 10 years. And so they have to change the focus. But thank you very much.
For example, the Syrian refugee camp is since 2011 until now, it exists and nothing changed. And there are a lot of examples in Jordan that they are since 15 years, 15 and 50 years, and in Lebanon the same. So they bring very segmented solutions that can stay for a long time.
And we have another question by Audrey. So I will read the question and you can check in Slack for more details. So any hints on how to shift the focus toward refugees' value rather than refugees' needs? I mean, for some people, it is an evidence, but how can we share this to people who do focus on refugees' needs instead, and hence slow down processes meant to integrate them in a society?
I know it's challenging. Thank you for this question. It's challenging to shift the attention of people
Rania, can you hear us?
Their needs, because they of course have needs, but capability approach gives you the choice. So not all the population will be interested in building their own capabilities, and this is the point. It's a choice, but there are some people who are not caring only about their needs. So that's why I give the story of my father. The needs have met in the story of my father, but he was not satisfied. You will find a lot of people, maybe the minority, but maybe the majority of people, because I didn't do the field work yet. But you will find that there is a good part of that population who would like to participate and do something and bring value to their communities. So if they are only 5% of those people who care about bringing value to the community, we will be fine, because 5% there will be 10%, and there will be then 15% and 20%. You know, so it's a choice for people. They would like to bring value or not to bring value. So of course the NGO will do some awareness seminar about their capabilities, and they can do something, and they should be aware about their skills and inner abilities. Of course, they should do that at the beginning, but at the end, it's a choice of these people to participate or accept their reality. But we need to give them the choice. So that's why in my father's story, I said that our financial situation improved, but his emotional distresses never improved. So we need to give the people who would like to participate, give them the chance. give them the resources in order to, if they would like to. And I will study this further when I do the field work. I can investigate whether there are a lot of people who are interested in increasing their value, or they are just satisfied with being the victims of what happened in their countries.